All right, here we go. Reflection 1 via video, which I am not super familiar with doing, so we are going to see how this lands. I think too, in the spirit of the themes that I found within the text I selected and the connections to readings and class material and that journey, I want to offer a pause and an opportunity for silence to fill the space of this reflection. So we'll close our eyes and take a breath. And feel into the heart space. And call into whatever messages need to come forward. So with that, as you may have guessed, my text that I selected was the silence text under titles The Mystery of Wholeness by Robert Sardeo. And within his text, he talks about silence as a source of the divine, and how that source, when we reach that place, is how we foster interconnection, not only with our spirit, our self, and our soul, but a connection across another and a connection to source. And in his 9 chapters, there's different ways described of how to get to that place, what that looks like, and the challenges that come into play. So with that, my plan on how to organize this is to kind of go through each of his chapters and then draw into the readings and the videos that I'm looking to relate it to. And for mine, the video that I'm drawing connections to is The Dream is Destiny, relating to Vince Catalupek. I hope I said that right. I know he's the CEO of Meow Wolf, and his reflection on all that. And then also The Science of the Heart, specifically the chapters 4 through 7, and drawing those in relation to the silence text. And then lastly, An Ocean with Many Shores is the last article I will be incorporating, and that's by Lupe. So all of those together are going to make up this reflection, and then also drawing into how to take all of these things and incorporate them into a therapeutic setting as a counselor in the future, and then just how I felt about everything as an individual. And also during this video reflection, bringing in class connections with the breakout rooms, with the art protocols, and the meditation. So all of that together is what we're going to touch on. But really, to begin, we can start with chapter 1, which seems like a great place to start. So this chapter itself just really kind of gives us an introduction on what is silence, and what is this concept that Sardeo is really trying to get across. And after each of the 9 chapters, it looks like there's a poem is a relative of his. I'm not sure if it's his wife. I didn't look into it that closely, but and the poems are really beautiful, and they kind of tie in each chapter as a nice transition. But with this particular chapter, there's a lot about the definition. So this particular quote I liked. It says, "Silence bears the wholeness we keep looking for, while we do not know exactly what we're looking for. It is around us and within us. It goes to the deepest depths of the soul, into the outermost reaches of the cosmos, and continually unites the two at the centering place of our heart. Here we discover the power of recreation. Here everything comes alive again for the first time. The secret and this mystery are so revolutionary that all who aspire to commercialize the world conspire to bury the secret in the noise of the world." So when he talks about the noise, he talks about how when we look for silence, there's specific places that it's easy to find, right? You know, when you're out in nature, you're out amongst the trees or by the ocean at a place that's quiet, and you can just be with the silence. Or at a sacred place like a cathedral or a cemetery, or places that require that meditative, quiet space. But with our world, there's noise. There's not only emotional noise of the ego that comes up with the things around us, there's noise of just the world. You know, just you hear the road traffic nearby, or whatever that noise looks like, but it's there, and it clouds our connection to the source, to the silence. And you know, he talks about the benefits of connecting, you know, the place of wholeness, the place of really truly understanding what messages we need to receive, and intuition and what comes from that. So when we look at chapter 2, it talks about the guardians of silence. So this part here is where the work comes in. So yes, there's we want to get to silence, right? But when there's noise, and there's also not only noise, but there's guardians, and these guardians can appear in different ways. They talk about, or he talks about Saint Anthony and his journey, and how they're almost like tricksters. You know, there's a story that where Saint Anthony is doing a fast, and there's a voice that comes in and says, hey, you know, you need nourishment, your body needs these things, what are you doing? Stop and eat. And Saint Anthony has to make it a point to ignore that voice and to continue on the journey. And then when he continues on the journey, he figures out the message that he needs to hear. And it's really powerful to hear that. And then, you know, there's confronting anxiety, there's confronting just kind of just fears and things that come up when we're in that quiet space. Our mind tends to wander. And there's an easy way to find that comfort, right? It's easier to lean into the noise and into material things to offer us peace at the time, right? You know, when I was looking at the comparison with The Ocean with Many Shores by Lupe, she talks about how indigenous cultures have a lot of wounding, specifically with colonization, where they lost their culture, they lost their home, they lost everything. There's a layer of historical trauma that comes up for them, and with this, a disconnection from the heart and from themselves, and not only with them, but with a lot of members of our society. And it's easy when we just, you know, go to a source of addiction, you know, grab a glass of wine, you know, fall into that pattern of behavior, or gambling, or whether it's another form of disassociation. That's the temptation to ignore, to disassociate, and to go into that place instead of connecting to source and to self, because it's not easy. It's not easy to hear and to heal what needs to be healed. So in reflection to that, you know, his wife her poetry is just really powerful, and I like to read a part of this one. There's just a part that says, "It's empty here, but I know I'm not alone. Passing through room after room, the silence haunts and protects, frightens and consoles. It's not just the dark, the strangeness, the creeping cobwebs, or the threatening closed doors. It's the confronted silence itself that can neither be evaded nor accepted. To allow it to remain, I am its persecuted slave. To break it open with sound, I become the known and located interloper, discovered, found out, subject to all the hidden demons it could unleash. Can I face them? Can I defeat them? hide in a place safe enough to be protected. So it's just, talks a little bit about how do we sit with the uncomfortable and sit with that sensation, and how do we get past it. And the trick is to lean into the heart and lean into the silence, and with that, the answers are there. So now we can move into the part where he talks about entering the silence. So how do we find it? In the beginning, it's, they mentioned that, okay, it's easy to find silence in the meditation, or when you're out in nature and you're walking, but the world is changing. It's becoming more and more noisy, and it's harder to separate and to really find time to lean into that space. So there's just, he talks about how there's techniques, there's a way to get there. There's a part that I recall where he talks about, so if you're in a place of meditation and you open your eyes, when you open your eyes, you're immediately drawn back into the realm of the physical and the realm of reality. And it's like that source connection just kind of dissipates into the background again. And so he talks about almost like half slit opening your eyes, and then with that you almost see more beauty, and you pull in that heart connection outward again into the physical space. And then with that made me think about the work of the Meow Wolf Project, and how the CEO he's telling us about how he was trying to figure out why on the reviews it was talking about how it was a transformative experience. And what he found was that there's this ability with what he created to take something to unlock the door of creativity and imagination in a world where we're just constantly given messages of, this is the way it is, this is my identity, this is how just so many knowns, and the unknown is just not really tapped into. And he continues to talk into these spaces of how creativity is a foster of love, and how it connects us across cultures and different backgrounds. We all have this ability and this desire and the capability to create. And that kind of brought me into that space of bringing the source to the surface into our reality. So then, chapter 4, moving on to this part here, it talks about relating within silence. And this one pulled on, what it would be like as a therapist to kind of pull this in. When we're in a close relationship or with someone, we tend to just stay really in the head in our interactions, right? You're kind of looking into, and with that, there's projection, there's emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just really heavy with emotion without leaning into the heart, an emotional reaction from the self versus really looking into a situation from the eyes of the other or the eyes of the divine. And so what they're talking about here is how when we respond and we offer love and affection from the space of the silence and from our heart and our connection to a higher power, it takes out its projection is projecting love and this unconditional ability to listen. And how do we listen effectively and not listen to speak, but listen to understand? And it's really powerful when it goes into It talks about ordinary conversations forget the intimacy. Thus, there are two factors to overcome if we are to allow silence into our speaking: the tendency for structure of the written word or narration to replace the original qualities of speech, the subconscious need for power over the other person, which uses this tool of automatic rapid speech. So it's just talks about that. And then another part of this, which I found really intriguing, was speech and how it talks about creating a rhythm. And so there's a part in here, it says how to break up the sentence. And as I was reading this, kind of going back to this page 50, it says, I enter the silence. I enter the silence. I enter the silence. And just how your inflection and the pause in your words creates intention. And how through rhythm it helps us regulate and connect back to the silence itself. And I just thought that was really powerful as well. And then when I was drawing ties to the reading about my computer, I had it pulled up but it locked. Hold on a second.